Mom, can I ride my bike?
Go ahead.
Alyssa Parks does a lot. She's a wife, a busy mom with 3 cute little kids, and a teacher homeschooling during COVID. But one thing she's not is a grocery store owner, even though the U.S. government thinks so.
I've never owned a business before. I've never been part of any sort of small business, and I've never applied for any sort of business loan.
In September, the Salem woman got a letter from the Small Business Administration alerting her Alyssa could soon start making payment on her nearly $45,000 COVID disaster loan, which she never applied for.
Who hands out $45,000? Honestly, is that just pennies and nickels and dimes to the government?
Alyssa would later learn that fraudsters had used her name and home address to submit a bogus application to the SBA, claiming she owned a grocery store that needed critical disaster relief.
This doesn't seem right to me that it was so simple for them to do this.
Yeah. Now, Alyssa, like countless other Americans, finds herself saddled with bogus debts after the government handed out potentially billions of dollars in fraudulent COVID relief.
If this loan starts coming due, I'm either going to have to pay on it or let it hit my credit, and I'm struggling with that. Why is that okay that that falls on me?
Yeah. So how did this happen? To understand, we've got to go back to the earliest stages of the pandemic, last spring, when the U.S. government scrambled to help businesses survive.
Our hearts go out to those affected by this terrible virus.
To get money out quickly, the SBA loosened its normal fraud safeguards. All it took to get a COVID-19 economic injury disaster loan was an online application. The fraudsters caught on fast, sharing tips like this tutorial on YouTube showing how to steal from the disaster loan program. Inside the government agency, loan officers grew accustomed to seeing bogus applications.
One single loan officer, I would report a dozen, maybe out of 80 applications a day as suspected fraud.
Nicholas Croce worked remotely as an SBA loan officer for about 7 weeks.
I understand that the government wanted to get this money out as quickly as possible, but it also went out to a lot of people who shouldn't have gotten it.
Croce said fraudsters used bogus email accounts, burner phone numbers, and relied on banks that typically don't share information with others.
The scammers that were submitting a dozen applications into my queue every day, they knew exactly these kinds of things. And they had figured out the system, right? Faster than I think the SBA could put in measures to combat it.
In a report last month, the agency's inspector general found the government had approved billions of dollars in potentially fraudulent loans after the SBA lowered the guardrails or relaxed internal controls, which significantly increased the risk of program fraud. Alyssa says the red flags should have been obvious on her application. The money was transferred to a bank with no branches in Oregon, and the fraudsters used her home address as the business location.
And apparently my house is a grocery store. I live in a neighborhood across the street from a elementary school, so it seems like a simple Google search could have told you that that was not accurate.
In response, an agency spokesperson wrote, "The SBA works diligently to mitigate fraudulent use of its programs and services, and if fraud is suspected, it should be reported," which Alyssa has done repeatedly with little help from the SBA.
I can't get any answers out of anybody. They just keep saying you have to wait for our fraud department to call you. And when I ask them how long that's going to take, it's kind of funny, their response, I don't know, because there's just so much fraud going on.
With 3 kids and a busy house, Alyssa already has plenty going on. On top of that, she's now stuck trying to clean up the government's mess and restore her family's financial record.